Hello, students and teachers. It's Brad Philpott here, author of this textbook, English A Language and Literature for the IB Diploma Program. And today I'd like to talk to you about the individual oral, and more specifically about how to formulate a really good global issue for that IO. We're going to look at 3 good examples, and I'm going to talk about some of the steps that you can take to also formulate a good global issue for your IO. So, in a previous video, I said that the global issue is like the string that ties everything together. You could even consider it the timeline on which everything is based. We looked at the IB criteria for a good global issue. It's supposed to be significant, transnational, and relevant to local contexts. And it should also relate to one of these fields of inquiry: culture, identity, community, beliefs, values, education, politics, power, and justice, art, creativity, and the imagination, science, technology, and the natural world. Okay, cool. But what does a good one look like? Here are 3 examples. So let's look at these, see what they have in common, and how you can maybe imitate or emulate some of their structures. How isolation has an adverse effect on mental health. Okay. How diversity can overcome oppression. Interesting. How narrow definitions of beauty lead to low self-esteem. All taken from 3 really good IOs on my support site. You'll notice they all start with this word, how. That's a useful word because it's going to allow you to park this big noun phrase in a sentence. You could say, today for my individual oral, I will be exploring the global issue of how diversity can be a source of inspiration to overcome oppression. See? Also, how is already pointing to a relationship between 2 things, and you'll need some power verbs to articulate that relationship. So, how isolation has an adverse effect on mental health. You'll see the words overcome in the second example, and you see the verb how X leads to Y in the third example. Now, all of those really outline a causal relationship. How X leads to Y. How X has an effect on Y. Essentially, this is what the authors of the works that you have explored are also arguing. So you'll be arguing this causal relationship throughout your individual oral. And IOs that are persuasive tend to do better. So try to identify that causal relationship in your global issue. And again, you'll notice how all of the nouns in here, isolation, mental health, diversity, oppression, they all connect back to one or more of those fields of inquiry. Oppression connects to justice, definitions of beauty connects to culture, and I think you can find more connections there that you would argue throughout as you conduct an individual oral as well. So what kind of steps should you take in order to develop a good global issue? Right. Besides imitating some of the structures, I recommend starting with your literary work. You only have 6 to work with at higher level, and you only have 4 to work with at standard level. And you'll have to use them wisely because, after all, you'll need 2 of those for your paper 2, and you might need another one for your higher level essay. I've done a whole separate video on double dipping and how to use literary work strategically, also with regards to conducting mock individual orals. So, when I say useful literary work, poetry works well, novels work well, graphic novels work well. Most works work well, and finding the right extract is, of course, the trick. But if you can identify early on what it is that the author is commenting critically on, you're close to your global issue. And once you think you found it, then it's time to go hunting for evidence of that same thing, that same issue, in a non-literary body of work. Now, when I say go hunting for, perhaps your teacher has already introduced some really good non-literary bodies of work in class. If not, perhaps you can introduce some, make some suggestions, and explore those with your class as well. Once you have those 2 works and you see there's a match thematically, that they're on similar topics, that they're really arguing the same argument, then it's time to find extracts that you think would line up nicely together. In a separate video, I will also show you some nice pairs of extracts and how they go really well together. And once you have your extracts, it's time to formulate that global issue, and you'll really be able to take it for a test drive when you write up your outline. And do this in consultation with your teacher, get some feedback, and when you're done writing your outline, perhaps even after you've written up a transcript of what you would like to say, then rewrite it, see how it works, rehearse, don't over rehearse, or I should say your individual oral or your mock individual oral shouldn't sound over rehearsed, but it would be silly not to rehearse it. And as you rehearse, you'll discover I suppose, the longevity, the validity of your global issue as you go. And you can always make tweaks before you submit your final outline form to your teacher in which you put your global issue. So if you like this pathway, if you want to see, I have a worksheet on how to build a good global issue on my support site, which you can check out. I also have lots of good samples of IOs, great recordings, and also some not so great recordings. I've ranked them all according to the scores they received, and you can check those out in some of the comments that the teachers have written there about those samples. So I wish you all the best on developing a really good global issue. You got this. Cool.